Sort of don't want to break the silence. The topics, they just keep getting deeper as we progress through the year, living in the presence. Oh, it's such a joy to see some old friends here, Marion and Jocelyn and Maria. It's just fun to see the chickens come home to roost. So I was contemplating this topic, meditating on it, living in the presence of God, and recollecting that because I'm on this plane of existence in duality, with karma flying out both ends, positive, negative, good, bad, indifferent and all of that. And then moments when I experience living in the presence, I'm sure we can all relate to that. That's why we're here in a beautiful temple like this, is try to recollect those moments and try to glue them together somehow to make them longer and deeper. Then I reflected on Yogananda's definition of self-realization. He said, self-realization is the knowing in all parts of body, mind, and soul that I am now in possession of the presence of God, of the omniscient God, that I don't need to pray for Him to come to me, that God's omnipresence is my omnipresence, and all I need to do is improve the knowing. That's partly paraphrased, but all we need to do is improve the knowing. So even if we can't be consciously in the presence, aware, forgetful of the knowing, we can practice the presence. There are things we can do, and that's what I said briefly in the email this Sunday. How can we remember? We practice the presence. Traditions of East and West offer us literally hundreds of ways to do that. So I can't possibly cover all of that today, but I want to touch on it. I read recently, why does a medical doctor who starts his own business call it a medical practice? He's practicing on us. So we're practicing the presence of God. And I just want to touch on a few ways to do that this morning. In Swami Kriyananda's autobiography, The Path, he talks about a story many of us are familiar with. When he first read Autobiography of a Yogi, got in a bus, he was 22 years old, went all the way out from New York to California looking for Yogananda. And it's quite a story how he finally finds him at the Hollywood Church. It was a Sunday, the Hollywood Church of Yogananda's. And he was giving interviews to people that afternoon. So Kriyananda arrives. He asks the secretary if he can meet Yogananda, speak with him, and she said, he has a really full schedule. It's probably not going to work today, but you can wait just in case. So he sat there. He got discouraged after a while, and then finally this lady came up to him and said, I told Yogananda about you and how far you'd come, and he said he would see you, so you can go in now. He goes in, he meets Yogananda for the first time. It was incredibly deep and precious to him. And then Yogananda said, I want you to know that I did not see you today because you came from so far away. He said, I saw you because Divine Mother told me to see you. And he went on to say that there was a woman who'd come from, I forget, it was Sweden or Finland or something, the prior week, and he didn't see her. And so he said, Divine Mother told me to see you. You have good karma. And I was reflecting on that story because he asked Divine Mother if he should see Kriyananda, and Divine Mother said, yes, you should see him. So how often do we remember to ask Divine Mother? Every day, every hour, every minute, every second? Can we remember to ask Divine Mother? Usually not without some practice of doing so, some sort of doing the finger exercises on the piano and practicing it so that it becomes in time second nature to us. And so often when people come to me for counsel, they'll say, I don't know what I want to do right now. I'm not sure what I want to be right now, where I should be right now. And I think to myself inwardly, that's the wrong question. The question is, what does God want me to do right now? And the answer is going to be different, because when we're doing what our little minds can think of as the best, there's going to be karma. It's going to be good karma in the bank or bad karma in the bank, but there's going to be karma. When we ask, what does God want? What do you want? Not just like third person, but God, what do you want me to do right now? Divine Mother, as Yogananda used to say, because he revered God as the Mother. Divine Mother, what do you want me to do right now? That's the question that we want to ask in every single moment. And that's what we want to practice as much as we can remember to ask in that way. That's what we want to practice. You know, I've shared this story with some of you before, but it's precious to me. When Hriman and I were traveling with Swami Kriyananda in Europe, we went with him to Lugano, Switzerland. It was one of his favorite places to go and rest. And in Lugano, there was a department store, and we were shopping one day, all of us with him, and we walked past the kitchenware department, and somebody was demonstrating this frying pan, big, heavy, what do you call it, anodized or whatever the word is, frying pan. And he bought it, Kriyananda did, and he gave it to us. And he said, here, I think you could use this because you have young children and, you know, I bet you cook a lot. So here you go, this giant frying pan in Switzerland. We had to, you know, get rid of things in our suitcase to make room for it and schlep this thing all the way back to America. We sort of rolled our eyes, but said thank you. And then we got home, and I realized that he was right. I was in the kitchen a lot with little children, and every time I would reach for that frying pan every single day, I thought of the thoughtfulness, the preciousness of the gift from him. And when I thought of him, I always thought of Yogananda, because he always pointed us to Yogananda. And when I think of Yogananda, I think of God. And so it was God reminding. We can have all kinds of tricks up our sleeves to remind us the things we find beautiful, bring them into our home and our workplace and wherever we go, you know, the precious leaf or flower or beautiful photograph, surrounding ourselves with things that are God reminding, so we can remember to ask God to guide our thoughts and our activities. Is this the right thing? What do you want me to do? And we can get in that habit, create that positive habit. And then in time, what happens is we feel that presence more and more. I was thinking that here it is, you know, just a week or two from Christmas. And as I said, the readings are getting deeper and deeper. And last week's reading was about the 10 virgins, you know, the 5 wise ones and the 5 not so wise ones. And the ones who were not so wise had let their lamps get dry, had let their devotion languish. And as a result, when God came, they weren't ready. And they had to go out and try to find that devotion again. And they missed the call. And the 5 wise ones had their lamps filled with devotion, with love for God. And so when God appeared like a thief in the night, they were ready and they could heed the call. And so before that, a couple of weeks were about karma and reincarnation. In other words, we don't know what our past has been. Yogananda said we don't really know until we're omniscient, until we're free in God. We can guess. Someone else can guess for us. But we don't really know where we've been before, how much. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that no spiritual effort is ever lost. We don't know how much effort we have put out in the past. When Yogananda in his autobiography writes that he, after 6 months, he actually left his Guru Sri Yukteswar's ashram to go and look for God in the Himalayas for a while. And it took a long time for him to see that he was not going to find it there in those high mountains. Or as Sri Yukteswar put it, something like, you know, not in the inert mountain. He came back to his guru expecting Sri Yukteswar to be a little miffed at him for having left all his duties so abruptly. But he wasn't. Sri Yukteswar embraced him, welcomed him back, and said to Yogananda that, you know, there are no expectations. The door's always open. We have a choice. And then in that moment, Yogananda touched his chest and gave him the experience of cosmic consciousness. He didn't know that was going to happen. He thought Sri Yukteswar was going to be miffed at him, and in that moment, he was called. He got the touch. And so for us, we don't know when that moment is going to come. And all we can do is practice. Practice that presence of God. It's taking one step at a time. When we don't feel it, we look for it. We feel it again. I don't mean outside of ourselves. I mean within ourselves. And that leads me to the final thing I wanted to talk about briefly, which is the affirmation that was paired with this topic, which was practicality. Okay, I mean, who would have thought, right? Practicality with living in the presence of God. In other words, we have to ground our spirituality in experience. This is so important. With Swami Kriyananda, serving with him, if he said it once, he said it 100 times. Ask yourself, he would say, does it work? And what he meant by that is practice it, try it, experience it. We have to have the direct experience of our ideals. They can't just be lofty in the ether. They have to be grounded in our own experience. And that's what makes it so important. You know, Saint Teresa of Avila, she founded many convents in her day. And one of the key prerequisites before she would accept someone to be a nun in her convent was common sense. Okay? I mean, you don't think of it that way. We think of spirituality as sort of woo-woo, but it's not. Not the practice of Raja Yoga. It is grounded in direct experience. Yogananda came to the West in part to give us the techniques and the philosophy and understanding and example of grounding our ideals in God, in our own experience. And so I just want to leave us with that thought and with the blessing that we have on Sundays with the readings if we listen sensitively. Also the Festival of Light. If we close our eyes and internalize them, we realize that there are layers and layers and layers of teaching to tune into. Joy to you. I thought I wanted to say joy to you, we'll see you again tomorrow, which is what I say every weekday for our program.